Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. The title of today's webinar is SharePoint: The Next Steps. We are Spindustry, and we've been in the business for 25 plus years, and along with our other SharePoint work, we provide several other services. After today's webinar, you'll receive a link to the recording and the slides. If you have any questions during today's amazing webinar, you can use the question feature to ask those, and if there's time at the end, we'll answer them. My contact information will be on the last slide of this slide deck, so if we don't get to your question, please feel free to reach out. Besides today's webinars, we do have a lot of others that are free and easy to access. You'll see some of those that relate to the content we discussed today on the slides as well. You can find other ones at spindustry.com/webinars. My name is Kelsey, and I'll be your host for today, and I must be encrypted if emailed. I also have Tavon Graham, who is for internal use only. And I have Jared Edge, who will retain for about 20 years, and then we'll archive him. So, Jared, do you want to hop in and tell us what we're talking about today?
Yeah, I think that was amazing. So as we sat and figured out what we were going to do for this webinar, we really wanted it to be about next steps. And the reason is because we get a lot of questions from clients or companies that will come to us. They already have SharePoint, and they're using it for document storage. Maybe they set up an intranet, those types of things. But what's next, right? Because sometimes when you get over that hurdle of we just got everything set up, Jared, and we think we're good to go, but what's really next after that? What else can we actually do with this environment? And I think that's very important to be able to have that conversation. So what we're looking for today is low-hanging fruit. So what things can a power user do without having anyone else help them with that? And then what things might you need like a developer for, or a superpower user or an admin or something like that to be able to help you with? But we still want the power user to know that these are possible things and they're easy to get into your environment. So we're really just looking at next steps that are within your reach. Okay, they're not too far out of your reach, and we think that you should be going down that road. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and we hope that you guys enjoy everything that we have prepared for you.
So, Jared, my team just put in a ton of work. We just finished our SharePoint implementation. I feel great. Am I done? Can we talk about what's next? I think a good place to kind of start would be maybe some apps and web parts, kind of those things that developers and power users could look at.
Awesome. So let's go there. So for most of this, I'm going to be outside of the slide deck. So I'm probably not going to come back to the slide decks until the end of this, but please know that we have tons of links inside of the deck that we'll be sending you. All of you will get that. We also have screenshots that correspond to the demos that we'll be doing. Those screenshots, just to give you reference points back to what we were talking about at the time, those are also in the slide deck. So we spent a lot of time on the deck to be able to get you something that was usable, that you could use to be able to go to all the different things that we're going to demo for you today. So, but I'm going to stay here in the demo, so just bear with us as we go through all of this. All right, so we're going to talk about apps and such, but I wanted to start out in the realm of what is within the realm of a power user, but also might need a developer, right? So you're kind of teetering back and forth between, I could do this as a power user, but I also might need a developer for this. And that location would be called Power Apps, okay? Power Apps is one of the amazing things that comes with your Office 365 subscription. It's already available to you. You're already paying for it. You'll see it right here on my menu, among all the other thousands of apps that Microsoft gives you inside of your beautiful environment. So I have that here, and let's go take a look at just a few things, right? So I want to stretch your mind, and we're going to do that with everything we talk about today, just stretching your mind. Now, I know this is ugly, so please don't judge me, right? But this is just the demo that's inside of the environment already. This is nothing that we built. However, we had a client come to us years and years ago, a municipality that said, hey, Jared, we have this scenario, this process that we do with our inspectors. Our inspectors, they go to a site, they take a clipboard with them, they look at the site, they take pictures with their phone for anything that's wrong, and then they fill out the actual piece of paper, write it onto the clipboard, and then they, about halfway through the day, after going to multiple sites, they come back to the office. They take the information from the sheets that they filled out, if they can read their own writing, and they go and they type that into an Excel document, and then they they copy their pictures from their phone to like a shared drive or something like that, and then they send an email over to the finance department, who has to then go bill for these errors or things that they found in their inspections, right? So we said, hey, we think we can make that better. You have SharePoint, you also have Power Apps. So we took this actual app and we enhanced it. We just started from this and made it way, way better, right? So theirs is the one that you would look at in their environment. First of all, it looks good, but also it just has more functionality inside of it. So what they do now is they go to a site, they have an iPad. On their iPad, they pull up this app, they get out of their truck, they go look at something that's wrong, they click here, they start filling out the app, they take pictures, and the pictures get uploaded directly into this. They click done, and when they're done, that ends up in the system inside of SharePoint in a SharePoint list, and then there's a library that holds on to all the images for them and associates all that stuff together. So we built that to them for them. Now they don't have to come back to the office every day. They can just stay out the entire time doing inspections, because that's also revenue for that municipality. So that's a very cool thing. So what happened there? We stretched the limit of what they thought SharePoint can do. They thought it was for document repository and those types of things. And we said, no, it's actually for workflow, and it's actually for creating applications and all these pieces of the puzzle. So yes, we're using SharePoint in the background, but we opened their mind and stretched it a little bit so they could get to here. And I could give you examples of this all day, but I just don't have enough time in this one webinar to do that. I did, though, want to put a picture in here of a actual Power App that looks nice, because this one looks beautiful, and just to say that they can look good, because I don't want you to walk away with, oh my gosh, is it going to look like that? So there you are there. So Power Apps is your first stop. This is within the realm of a power user. They could easily create Power Apps and add those onto their list and libraries that they have now. But to really get into deep functionality, some of the things that we did for a client, maybe a developer also could help with that. So just keep that in mind. Good enough for a power user, but also might need a developer if you're doing super advanced stuff. Secondly, we get a lot of questions about SharePoint where a person comes to us and says, hey, I'm looking at this site and, I don't like the way the search works. Can it do this? Or when I go to find people inside of SharePoint, can it do this? Or hey, the news, I don't like when we click on a news item and it goes to another page, because if that's not really what they wanted to use, they have to go back and come to this page. So can I make it do this? And my answer to everyone is always yes. We can make it do that, right? Because there's a thing called the SharePoint framework. Now, this is not for a power user. This is for a developer to be able to do this. I know we have some developers out here. They come to our webinars all the time. So developers, they can use SharePoint framework to do this. So let me just explain what that is and why I'm telling you as power users that you should know about this. Because as a power user, you just need to know that it's within the realm of things that SharePoint can do. But you also need to know, in this case, you might need a developer to do it. Okay, so let me just give you a short demo here. So here I have a different way to look at news. So we built this for a client years and years and years ago. Theirs is actually more robust. This is just a demo of it. But instead of having to click on the news item and go to a new page, they click on the news item and it shows them right here, right? They just click the back button, it comes right back. So they're not leaving this page to go view news. And this in a mobile view is essential. Like when I'm looking at everything, because a lot of their employees were on mobile phones actually checking into the intranet and doing things like that. And they didn't want them to have to click, wait for another page to load, and then click back because they didn't want to read that article. They wanted to make it a lot simpler. And so basically what we did is say, let's just put that right on the page. We'll build a SharePoint framework control, and you can put it in as a web part. So the cool thing about SharePoint framework is it's the same technology that Microsoft uses to create all of their little controls, right? So you're not going outside the bounds of what SharePoint's supposed to do. You're right in there, but you might just need a developer to help you do that. Very quickly, another question that we get from our clients is, hey, when I do a search, how do I just make it bring back people instead of bring back documents and people? And we've had that question so many times that we said, let's just build a SharePoint control for that. So we did. We built a SharePoint framework control for that, where they just wanted to be able to search by first name and last name, and then just select, like, here's the department that I'm looking for, so who's in that department. It'll show you those people inside that department and so forth. It even uses the same SharePoint controls inside of our controls that you're already used to. So when you hover over a person inside of SharePoint, it gives you this card. So we're just leveraging SharePoint technology, putting it inside of technology that we created, all using the SharePoint framework. So I mention all that because it's possible for you to do. So as a power user, how then do I find these things, Jared? Where is this stuff at? How did you know that these things existed? Great question. So in the slide deck, which again all of you will get, we spent a lot of time in that slide deck. There's some links, and here's a link to the SharePoint framework samples. And these are ones that are built by the community. So every time we see P&P, that's something like the community probably created for us and they give to us for free, right? So these are web parts that are not in your environment, but could be in your environment. Like, for example, you may say, I don't like the way the calendar works. It's kind of odd and weird. Well, these nice people built a calendar out here for free, and you can put it in your environment. Now, the question you would say, well, Jared, I can't just take some code that someone built and put that in my environment. Well, guess what? You actually get all of the code for this as well. So your team could go review all of the code, make adjustments to the code, make changes that they like or remove things they don't like, and then also compile it for themselves and then put it into your environment. So still safe, very, very safe, because all of this stuff is free and for you to be able to utilize. So I have this page in there so you can just search through here for things that you might find interesting, things that you have problems with. In addition to that, I'm going to be talking in just a little while about the P&P modern search. Okay, this is something we put into every implementation that we've ever done. We always put this control in there. It's super safe and it is amazing. So I'm going to talk about that in just a few seconds. So now let's jump from talking about the things that a developer might need to help you with to things that you could actually do right out of the box.
Yeah, that'd be great. Tavon, can you kind of walk us through maybe what's in my reach? If I'm not a developer, I'm just a power user.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things that I find are important to talk about from that power user perspective would just be formatting. Ooh, fancy word. By formatting, what we're really talking about is just the way that SharePoint presents information back to you,
Hey, Tamon,
right?
just for the record,
Yes.
formatting is not a fancy word, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, some people might find it fancy. They can do fancy formatting. So anyway, formatting again is how we present information back. So we can do formatting on our lists, our libraries, our columns. We have other types of formatting in the environment as well. But the first thing that I want to show you guys here is column level formatting. All right. Maybe not as fancy as I thought, but out of the box, SharePoint gives you some formatting options for your columns, right? For instance, these options that you see here on the page, pending, denied, approved, the way they're colored, that's column formatting, right? Formatting those choices. We can also format the entire cell, that entire column that the approval status is in based on some condition, or we can format the entire max column here. We can format these entire rows and say, if max is above 50,000, go ahead and make that row green so it draws our attention, right? We have all these options to change around the way that this list actually looks. We can go beyond just that as well, right? If you tell me, Tavon, I'm not really sold on this list, approach to presenting this information. I'd actually prefer that we could see this as something like a calendar or something like a board view. Well, those are examples of formatting as well, and some of those come with SharePoint, right? So if we go to our approved vendors view here, we're looking at this same list, but now it's formatted as cards, right? Now, instead of looking at a database style of consuming my information, I actually see it represented much more visually in these interactive, clickable cards that we could change around the way they look. If we go down to our vendor board, you'll find that board view, which takes that card idea and steps it up a notch even further, right? If you ever use Planner or other task management software, you'll have seen a board very similar to this, where we can click and drag between our categories. This is something that SharePoint just does for you out of the box, and it's a very powerful thing. But I hear you thinking, how do we take that to the next level? So if we go back to that idea of P&P, right? They also, the SharePoint community, have gone ahead and created some samples for us of column formatting and of view formatting, and actually of things you can do with the edit new item forms as well. So just for sake of time, we're going to move pretty quickly through this, but these are links that you're going to get, right? So you can go out and look at all of these community samples of some pretty amazing different views that are out there. This is one that I wanted to highlight for you just because it's something I get asked about all the time, is the SharePoint let us do things like heat maps. We work in all different states or all different counties within a state or all different countries. How do we actually just visually see where we have most of our information or where we do the most work? Well, the community saw that need. They put together this formatting example for you to actually go ahead and turn your regular SharePoint list into a heat map. Right? This is an amazing thing that you can actually just go out and take the code for and plug into your list. Any power user can go out there, grab this JSON formatting code, and apply that to a list view as long as your list has the right columns.
And I know that looks scary because, it's JSON. It's not something you work with on a daily basis, but there's instructions on how to do these things, right? And really all it is copying and pasting this into a certain place inside of your code. And I'll just very briefly go into here. I'll go back to the actual list here. And as you're putting stuff into the formatting version of that column, I'll format this column, and you'll see advanced mode. It's basically copy, paste into here, and then you're good to go. Now, there's rules you'd have to follow, so there's more you need to know, but I just want to show the simplicity of it, if that's okay for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And again, bear in mind that's something as easy as copy and paste, so a power user can do it. But if you want to take some of these examples and enhance them or change them, or even write your own, development knowledge can also be pretty helpful to have when it comes to making this formatting exactly what you want.
Yep.
All right, so one more example that I'll show you here is a project Gantt chart. All right. This is one of those things that we used to have back in classic SharePoint that everybody loved. People were real sold on the idea of the Gantt chart with a task list. Unfortunately, modern SharePoint said, we're not going to carry that over. Go ahead and make that yourself if you want. The community heard that, said, we'll just go ahead and make something that everybody can use. And that's where this Gantt chart comes from over in those PNP examples. Now you'll see they give us the requirements for this particular code to work just as is. If you wanted to take this and make it work with your own columns, you certainly can, right? You can edit all of that JSON that they made available for you. But let's go over to our TMI site again, and I'll just show you in a more interactive way how this actually turned out. So here we have a project tasks list sitting on one of our SharePoint sites. If you're not too familiar with this fact, right, we can change this view up in the top right from all items where we're at now over to a new view that we created called Gantt chart. So just go ahead and click on that and you'll see, wow, here's that Gantt chart, but on this data that I made in our SharePoint environment. And this is a fully interactive Gantt chart as well. It gives us actionable buttons we can click on to actually update these items. Now that we've marked this task as not complete and it was due before, it's running late, right? It has all that functionality that you're thinking it'd be nice if you could actually build into your lists. And again, this is just the beginning. You can take this, you can change it, you can grow with it, you can make it fit your data in whatever way that you want it to. So pretty cool example of something the community made there.
And I think that's significant. And I think we probably should give a kudos to Microsoft on this particular one for having the thought, to be able to say, maybe people are going to want to inject their own code in here and be able to present it a different way or work with it a different way. And I think it's amazing what they're allowing us to do. And I think it's also a shout out to the community because they create these things and put them in there for free instead of charging you for them. And that is capital. All right, let's go.
All right, awesome. So this was list formatting, and the same thing can apply to libraries. But there are a couple of other pieces of basic SharePoint that I think all of your power users should be aware of. And for one of those, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these SharePoint apps. All right, so we're going to pull up here a page called Clinton Central. This is just a demo page that we made with a bunch of different out-of-the-box web parts on it. Anyone who doesn't know, web parts are just the pieces that we plug into SharePoint pages to make them look, feel, and do everything that we want them to have on them. So before we take a deeper look at some of the web parts on this page, let me have you actually click the waffle icon up in the top left. All right, so we showed you this a minute ago, but I want to highlight just how many first-party apps Microsoft has in your environment, right? Everything from SharePoint to Viva Engage, Power Automate, Stream, Microsoft Forms, Power Apps. All these different apps that are sitting out there available for you to use, you're already paying for them, are things that I think you should be using. Maybe you're not ready to roll them all out. Maybe you want to take a look at one or two to start with. But SharePoint is at its best when you use the complete Microsoft suite instead of just SharePoint or just the basic pieces of SharePoint. All right, so with that said, what is this Clinton Central page? What's kind of the story behind this? So in TMI, this organization, this whole demo is based on, they have an office over in Clinton. That Clinton office is full of people who really like to work a certain way, right? They don't want to have to go out to a whole bunch of different pages to find information. They're a very social bunch. They want to be able to chat with each other from the page where they spend most of their time. They want to be able to see some key information about their Clinton project right at a glance on the home page that they go to every day. So here you'll find, again, this is just a SharePoint page with some web parts on it. We've got news, we got events or key dates as they've decided to call it. We got a people web part. If you've worked with us, you're probably familiar with at least those 3 web parts, but we've done some other webinars in the past. We've done training many, many times about what you can actually do to take a page and make it a little bit more than just a place you find news and events. So over on the right-hand side here, you see chat with us. We took that other app, Viva Engage, and we actually plugged it into this SharePoint page. And it is fully functional, right? You can click in here to write a comment. You can react to messages. You can see what people are talking about. You can hit view all and expand your view of this. This is truly taking that Viva Engage experience and telling you you don't have to leave SharePoint to work with this tool. A little bit lower down the page in the middle, we've also got videos. This is Stream, right? Stream is where Microsoft hosts videos, and it's the playback mechanism. We plugged that into a SharePoint page, so you don't have to go out to Stream. You don't have to go hunt down these videos. We're just showing the latest training videos for the Clinton office right here on this page. And you can present these as either single videos or playlists or a selection of multiple videos. Here they just chose the 2 most recent, and that worked really well for them. But bear in mind, you can present this however you want. All right, right below that, we've got a couple of other pieces of this page. I'll jump us down past Clinton images for just a second here. We'll come back to that in a minute. So you remember that Gantt chart and that project status that we were looking at just a few minutes ago? Well, we can take a list and we can plug it into a page. And we can take a formatted view of that list and plug it into a page. So this is that exact same list that we were just thinking about earlier. It's still just as functional. It's formatted just the way that we want it to be. But now we can look at it, we can work with it, we can interact with it without having to leave our SharePoint page. Below that, they've gone a step further. You know, the Clinton office, they have a lot of IT requests that come through. So what Clinton actually did was they went ahead and embedded onto their page an IT support form. So if you click on this section down here at the bottom, it'll expand for you, and you can fill out their IT ticketing form without ever leaving the home page where they like to spend all of their time. We've got some automations tied to this that actually process that ticket. But again, this is just a regular Microsoft form, one of those other Microsoft apps, but embedded into SharePoint. All right, that's all very cool, very powerful, and extremely easy to work with and set up. If you've seen some of our past webinars, we actually run you through some of how you can set up a page yourselves. But again, that is definitely at the power user level.
And I
Now
think what
let's
we
go
want
back.
you to take from that, sorry, Tivon, I think what we want you to take from that is here are just some things that we see clients use all the time, you know, and just to broaden your mind, because a lot of times when an organization comes to us and they didn't go through like our governance or anything like that, but they have SharePoint. When we get to them, they're using SharePoint as here's a library repository sitting there, you know, and the only links they have are just links that go to libraries. And we're really saying, hey, present a page so that you can aggregate that data together for people and give them some context around it as well. And so that's kind of what this is doing for them. So this is a great demo. Thanks, Savon.
Awesome, awesome. And the one last thing that I want to talk about on this page, or we can go to another one if you prefer, is highlighted content, right? Highlighted content is just a mechanism that Microsoft made available for you to aggregate information. Think of it very similarly to a search, right? Just kind of pulling in those results and presenting them in one of a few ways that you can select from to actually show off this information for your people. But I think you wanted to talk some more about that, didn't you?
Yeah, so I do. So the highlighted content web part is really, really nice. So again, when I'm trying to get information that doesn't live on my site, that lives other places in the organization, but I want to show it on my site on a particular page to make it so that I don't have to go all over the place to find it. I can just get it all from one centralized place. The highlighted content web part is just a search web part. It goes out and searches for the information you want. You have a lot of flexibility inside of it. So there's the point and click way. So every power user, every site steward should be able to go use this, right? Because there's a very point and click way to do it. So I say filter, I come in, I select the sites that I want to use. So I can say this site, get it from a document library on this site, or go get for this whole site collection, or let me just give you the actual site I want to go get, right? And so you can go and put in the URLs, grab sites that you want, check them. It'll even give you, say, hey, here's some sites that are associated to this hub. You can just select those. Very point and click, right? And then you can say, oh, just show documents or just show pages from SharePoint. So if you're heavy into pages, you can say, just show pages and make this more like website searches, right? Or just show news or videos. I just want to show the latest videos that have come up, or images, the latest images that people have put into the environment. All those types of things are possible to be able to do, right? So there's a lot of functionality that it has. But what you don't see in here, like, so I see Word, Excel, Power. What I don't see is like, how do I put one of my custom content types inside of there? So if your organization went through governance and you adopted content types, how do I get one of those in there? So that's a little bit more advanced, but it's still possible to do inside of this control, right? And so here I could say, oh, well, I wanted to go ahead and pre-filter that out once it goes and finds the information. And I want to filter it based on certain things, like it includes the word. For mine, I rigged it to say policies, or was recently added or recently changed, or da 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 da, or managed property. So once you hit managed property, now you're in a more advanced level. You might need an admin or developer who understands what managed properties are to be able to target specific things in your environment. So you can do that from here. It is a little bit more complicated to do, but you can do it from here still. So I'm just saying it's possible to do. And then you can show that information in any way you want: a grid, a list, a carousel, with the little boops, or a compact list, or film strip, which looks very much like the carousel. But I'm going to put it back on grid. So you have options there for what you want to be able to do with it and how many you want to show and things like that. So I'm just going to say just show 2. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and republish that for a second. And there's another control that's available to you that you would have to put into your environment, but still free and available to you, that you could use to do even more than what the highlighted content web part does. So if you've been to any of our webinars where we talked purely about SharePoint, we have introduced you to our search to the PNP search. It's not our search; it's a free search available for you on from PNP. PNP's search web parts is what it's called. I have the link in the slide deck, which all of you will get. Okay, so inside of here, instead of using the search that comes out of this top portion that Microsoft gives you, which when you search, it goes through and finds information. Certainly it does it correctly, but it doesn't present the search results in the best way. Like, first of all, it doesn't even tell you how many items came back, right? That's just something you would expect from any search engine, right? They'll fix that now that I said it out loud. But it doesn't look, their search results don't look like your normal pages either. So we use the PNP search web parts to put that into the context of the rest of your site. So this page looks like the rest of my pages, right? And it's very powerful. It comes with three, actually more than 3 parts in there. So this is the text box that I put my search information in, the keywords I'm going to search for. This is the results down here, and I'm going to talk more about that in a second. And then over here, I'm able to do things like refine my search. So let's just say that I refresh this page here and start from blank. Okay, and let's just say that I search for like a red car or something like that. Red car. Okay, then it goes and does that search. That's really cool, right? And it gave me 247 items back. That's fantastic to know, because I need to know whether I need to click the next button or not, or put another keyword in there. But on the right-hand side, I'm able to narrow that down based on the type of content. So we invested in content types. Now I can utilize that here. So I can say, oh, I was looking for an SOP. It knows that there were 5. So this is just like going to Amazon and clicking Prime, right? Get rid of all the things that aren't Prime. And then I also have tags on several of my documents as well. And so I'd be able to use that, or the created date, and refined by all these beautiful things. So that's a fascinating search, right? But what you could do is use just this search results web part as well. So let me go back to the page we were on before. The top part is using the highlighted content web part. The bottom part is using the search results web part from PMP, right? And you'll see I can get the same style result and show it the same type of way that I want. But I'm going to go in here and edit it for just a second. Now, is this in the realm of a power user to be able to do? My answer is yes. Okay. A power user could go through and do the things that I'm going to show you, but they would need someone first to give them instructions on it, right? So, like, here's how you go in and do it. So it's not like they maybe pick it up on their own. It'd be like, here, I put a control in here. Here's how you use that control, and I think they'd be fine. So inside of here, in addition to being able to put specific searches in there, so I could say like, oh, anytime someone searches on this page, it only shows policies. I could do something like that. In addition to be able to do all that, I can set sort orders, all those really kind of cool things, and so forth. In this version, I'm using version 3. It has synonyms. In version 4, it does not have synonyms. Synonyms are really cool because you can say if someone's searching for the person's name who is Kate, that it should also look for KT and for Caitlin and for other things, right? You say that's the same thing. And then so those are really kind of cool to be able to do. But I'm just going to talk about the presentation of it, right? And so inside of here, it has, again, I can show it as a simple list or a detailed list or tiles like I'm doing. And when I'm showing it as tiles, I can actually come down here and say, well, I want to control what's on this card, right? So right now I have these tags showing up on here, and I may say, I don't want those tags to show up here. So I'm just going to, say, I'm going to edit that and say, I don't want that in here. Boop, boop. Okay, boom. I don't want that on my page. And so when I save that, you're going to see now those tags went away. So I can control the way this looks. And then if you said, hey, I'm really conscious about the way it looks, I want it to actually work differently and look differently, you can fully customize the way this looks. So you can go to custom mode, put in your own code, again, for a developer at that point, and you can put in your own code and do some magnificent things with here. We've had clients ask us to do crazy stuff, and we have accomplished the crazy stuff with this control. Super powerful. This needs to be in everyone's environment. I wish Microsoft would just automatically plug it into the environment and save us the trouble of having to put it there. So very, very cool. I put the links to the PMP search web part inside of the slide deck, so you guys will know where to get it. I think the process for that would be you'd have to tell your IT department you want this in there. They'd have to look at it, review it. Maybe they download the code for it and look at it to see if they're okay with the code, but most times everybody is. And then they'll put that in your environment, and it'll be available as a web part just the same way you select any other web part there. So that's awesome stuff. I'll turn it back over to Kelsey.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all that rundown. Like you said, PMP is very, very popular. We give it to everyone and it just makes search so much easier. Now, I would love if we can hop into Power BI.
All right, let's talk about Power BI. So the low-hanging fruit piece of Power BI is how do I get, so you're a company, you're using Power BI. Right now you have people going out to the Power BI portal to be able to look at Power BI stuff. And a lot of people don't know that we can just embed that right on a page. The other thing that people don't know is that I can take any list that I have and actually have a Power BI report created from that automatically, right? So those are just some really cool things that are possible to do. So let me just go here to this tickets list, which Tavon will talk more about this tickets list in a little while. And you'll find that there's this integrate button up here. And in that, you see Power Apps, you see Power Automate, but you also see Power BI. And you can click here to visualize this list. I already have one created in case it takes a long time. But you can visualize this list. So when you click on that, it'll take you to the Power BI interface. I'm going to create a report. And it's going to just do it automatically with what it thinks I want to be able to see. And it's just using the data that's inside of my list. So it did that pretty quickly. Let's go ahead and view the report now. There it is. And so you'll see that it gave me some information on what I'm looking for. But it's also active. So I could go ahead and say, oh, you know what? I want to, take this control right here that it put on here and just change what I'm showing inside of it. So you can unselect things here and it'll just redo the report for you. You can reselect things here. It'll redo the report for you. So it's just very, very user friendly. So for that reason, I say this is in the realm of any power user who has the right licensing. So you would need Power BI Pro licensing for this. Even if someone tells you you don't, you just do. Power BI Pro licensing for this. If you have E5 licensing, your Power BI Pro, you guys already have Power BI Pro, so you're good to go. But this is really kind of cool. Once you're finished with it, you just save it, publish it to the list, give it a name, demo 2, and then publish it. Tavon and Kelsey are cringing because they're like, he just named that demo. Wow. So then as a person, if you come into this site, they basically come in, they see under Power BI that already have some reports here, and they can just click on one of those and it'll take them to that report. And that's just really nice to be able to do, because you might have a list that you're managing and you just want to be able to visualize it a little bit differently than the way you normally look at that list. So I think that's important to be able to do. The other thing that I said that I don't think people fully realize they can do is that if you have Power BI reports, instead of having your team have to go out to Power BI portal to look at that, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? But again, when we're talking about aggregating information so that people can come to one place and take a look at it, and we're talking about making things easier for the end user, that's the job of a site steward. How can I make things a lot easier for my end users, right? Power BI on a page is one of the ways we can do that. So here I'm in my HR team only site. And when HR comes in here to collaborate with each other, then they just wanted some ready reports on here. This is actually a SharePoint control over here. This is a Power BI report that I've embedded on here. It is absolutely fully aware that it's a Power BI report, and it does all the things that your Power BI report is expected to do. It works, right? So the web part for that, I'll just go ahead and edit this. The web part for that is the Power BI web part. And so if I was to go add a new one in here and just type in a Power BI, you'd see that there's the Power BI web part right there. And when you add it in there, and we go to the properties for it, it just says, hey, what's the link to that report? So you can get that from your Power BI portal, grab the link for that report, paste it in here. It'll go look automatically, see how many pages you have in that report. So you see I have 3 pages. It'll ask you which one do you want to show right now. And then it'll also ask the aspect ratio that you want it to be for as well. And then here you can say, I want to turn on the navigation pane. So you could turn that navigation pane off and only show them that one page, and they'd never be able to move from that. That's pretty cool, right? Or you could show the filter pane on the side if you wanted to, and then they'd be able to actually filter your report as well. So you could allow them to continue to filter it in multiple ways. And then you can also show the action bar on there as well. So you get to choose how much of that you actually want to show inside of there. And that's just your preference there. There's no recommendation that I actually have for that, just your preference on what you want to be able to do. So very, very cool control out of the box, already there for you, available to be able to use. I think that's one that you should put into your quiver. All right, so I'll turn it back over to Kelsey.
Perfect. So, as Jared was going through all of that amazing information, we have a ton of webinars already that talk about Power Apps and Power BI. So when you get the slides for this presentation, you'll see all of those links in case you want a deeper dive into those items. But Jared, you said something earlier, a phrase that I want to highlight. You said making things easier for the users. And I think something that just like really hits home with that is automation. So I'd love, Tavon, if you could start talking about automation for us.
All right, automation. So if any of you know me, you know Power Automate is my favorite piece of the whole Microsoft puzzle. That's really what we're going to focus on right now. So Power Automate, if you aren't familiar, is just the workflow engine that lets you automate tasks across the Microsoft apps or even in other systems as well. So this is something.
Tavon, before you jump in and start showing them, what are some things that some unimaginable things that we've done for our clients as far as workflow?
All right. So one example that always comes to mind is we worked with a construction company at some point who said, we've got projects going on, and I would really like for that project to not only have a space in SharePoint as soon as we recognize that it's a project, but also give the project team permissions to it. And then, because we're a construction company, they have to get to that project site at some point. They have to go physically to the job. So why don't we send them a text automatically that morning with a link to a Google map that'll take them to the actual job site? That was one whole automation process for one of our clients in the past. We've also done some cool things with cross-platform content management, like, go ahead and publish this news out to different systems, or, go ahead and pull in information from places like, our company Twitter or YouTube or whatever. All the way down to some of those more simple cases like, hey, let's go ahead and customize a approval process. So it goes to these 3 people, then if they approve, it goes to these 4 other people. Then based on some conditions, it'll either, get routed further or just approve the item, right? All of those different automation scenarios all happen with Power Automate.
I'll add one more to that, and I'll see if you remember this because it's been such a long time now. A client had Salesforce. They didn't want to increase the number of Salesforce licenses they had, and not everyone needed to get to the Salesforce information. They just needed to get to the documents that were related to the Salesforce information. And so we had it so that every time an opportunity got to a certain place, it spun up a project or a site inside of SharePoint. And inside of that site, it had document sets inside of there for the different pieces of the puzzle that they did as they worked through the stages of it. And all their employees were able to go to the SharePoint piece, which they had licensing for, and then the salespeople stayed inside of Salesforce, and that was really cool. So not only did it save them licensing money by just automating this process, but it also captured the process and made it more accurate for them. So those are just really cool things. And I want, again, we're trying to stretch your mind in this webinar. Just think, all these different disconnected systems, they can be connected together by Power Automate. All right, Tavon, go.
Yeah. One little last thing I'll highlight there with stretching your mind. Never think that Power Automate can't talk to a system, right? If it has an API, Power Automate can reach it. That includes any number of third-party apps. All right, so really quickly here, we're just going to jump over to our demo where I'll show you how actually simple it is to get started with Power Automate. Right, so here we are in that ticket list. Up at the very top of this page, you'll see the button for Automate and Integrate. These are two different mechanisms you can use to get yourself started with simple automations. The Automate menu is really all about these rules and some out-of-the-box approvals that are okay, but don't always meet your needs. Rules are just simple notifications. The one that I want you to focus on, though, is Integrate. Yep. And here you can see what those rules are actually like to build. It's very visual. But under Integrate, under the Power Automate menu, when we click Create a Flow, this will actually pull up a list of templates that Microsoft and the Power Automate community have created that they think will be pretty helpful for you. This is not by any means the complete list of templates. There are thousands of templates sitting out there, and if you don't find a template that meets your needs, you can build your own workflows. This is something that Microsoft has put a lot of effort into making easy so that your power users can actually do this. But if you're development minded, that's where you can start to integrate those other systems. That's where you can start to push the boundaries and push the limits beyond some of these simple approvals and simple notifications into some of those crazy and advanced systems that we've seen people build.
So does that mean we're
All right.
saying that the piece we're showing them right now, any user could do?
Absolutely.
And then,
With just a
if you need to
couple of
get more
clicks.
robust than that, then we jump up to a power user or a developer. Got you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. All right, so just to show you how easy this is, go ahead and click on that request approval in Teams. That's a very common thing, right? A ticket got submitted, it needs to go through some kind of approval and assignment process. So just by clicking on that button, right, it's identified the template that we wanted. It's making sure we can talk to all these different systems. It pulled us out to the Power Automate platform so we can actually say, yep, all this looks good, continue and create this flow for us. And I won't walk you through what Power Automate is really showing us here or setting up this flow. There's a couple of things you want to change about it. We've done webinars on that in the past. So just for sake of time, we'll move on to our next example. But notice that this is, in fact, a fully built out workflow that'll actually accomplish exactly what that template set out to do for us.
Awesome.
All right. So let's quickly jump over to client folios. We won't spend too much time here. This is just our list of projects in the TMI environment. And just like we were talking about with those projects before, this is actually wired up to create a space for us in SharePoint for this project. Make sure the project team is the only people who have permissions to it. And it goes a step further and actually generates a location in Microsoft Teams for us to talk about this project as well. And that's powerful, right? Maybe I don't want Kelsey seeing my project documents because I don't trust her with them. Maybe I only want me and the 4 other people on my project to be able to work with the project information and the pages that are associated with it.
Rude.
And keep in mind, this is a fully functional SharePoint site that's about to be generated here just because we put something into a list. For sake of time, I'll just have us go to a pre-baked example, maybe the Lego challenge here, right? This is not out of the box. This is a custom template. It's got our homepage on it. It's got our tasks on the side. It's got all of these different pieces that we told SharePoint should be on all of our project sites. and it was done with that Power Automate workflow just by putting something into a list. All right. I'll go ahead and toss it back over to Kelsey, just to keep us moving.
Perfect. Okay, now believe it or not, we also have more webinars on Power Apps, Power Automate, all those items. So if you want more info on Power Automate, like Tavon was talking about, we have 2 other webinars that specialize in that. Now, automation is nice, but earlier, again, I heard a word that I really love, and it's retention. I think we should start talking about that. It's a really important piece for security.
So thanks, Kelsey. I'm going to step backwards first and say, and not assume that everyone here understands what retention is or why it's vital to every organization. And then I'll also say that this is something you're all paying for. So if you have licenses for Office 365, especially if you guys are E3 or business licenses or E5, any of that stuff, you have the things that I'm going to show you. Yes, there might be a need to go to a higher level of license, like say E5 licensing, if you're doing certain things like automating certain pieces of it. But for the most part, you all have it. So what is this retention piece? What actually is that? So you store documents in SharePoint. You got SharePoint set up. You've been storing documents in there, and so for the next couple of years or however long you have SharePoint, you're going to start just keep dumping documents inside of it. You guys create stuff. How long should those documents stay? What are the rules around the life cycle of that document? Certainly, you have some cases where you are supposed to hold on to a document for 5 years, and then after those 5 years, it goes through a review process to see if it's still needed. If it's not needed anymore, it gets discarded. Or you have certain documents that we only hold for 3 years, and then they have to be destroyed. Or you have certain documents that if we were audited and this document wasn't here within that 5-year period, we would be in trouble. So we have to make sure that document cannot be deleted within that 5-year period. That's retention, right? That is retention. And that's a very important part of the puzzle when you're dealing with documents. So you may not have figured that on day one. Okay, I definitely, if you're one of our clients, you went through governance and you thought about this process, even though it's not an implementation day one thing. What you actually are doing with that is you're saying, I'm setting up so that later when I want to implement it, we're going to be okay. So you use best practices like content types, metadata, and things like that to help us out with the next stage. But you may not have implemented it on day one. So when should I start thinking about this? Start thinking about it on day one, but maybe you implement it within the first year or second year of having SharePoint up and running and you storing a bunch of documents there. Let's not put it to the side where we just forget about it. Let's start planning for this effort right away. It is a whole company effort, not a power user effort or an admin effort. It's going to involve everybody because this is legal stuff, right? So it is that we have to train people on what it means, but we also have to get it implemented, right? So there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle there, but it is important and it is a SharePoint next step. So I'm just going to briefly show you some of the mechanics of it just so you can get a visual in your mind. So in the Compliance Center, which is called Microsoft Purview, you have several pieces inside of here, and I'm going to talk about information protection in just a second, but you also have records management. There's actually 2 places for records management. If you are on like E3 licenses, or you don't have, let's say if you don't have E5 licenses or the extra add-ins, you're using this one right here, which is called Microsoft 365, and you can do your records management from that piece. If you are using E5 or you have the additional add-ins for your Office 365 environment, you can use this records management piece. Essentially, you'll be able to accomplish the same thing. It's just that this one right here gives you this really cool thing called a file plan. And if that file plan ever shows back up here, then you'll be able to see what I mean by that. So I mean, I have to refresh. It's acting up today. That's okay. These are things that happen in live demos, right? So inside of here, your compliance manager is going to come in and say, here are the labels that we have that are vital to us. And it may be things like keep a document for 7 years, right? And then move it to the recycle bin, or keep a document for 5 years from the last time it was modified and then delete it permanently, right? So there's all these different types of items that are there, and I promise you that if it shows up here, you'll be able to see what I mean by that. So once you get all those in there, you can see that it's loading. Once you get all those in there and they've laid out what they're supposed to be, then you're going to group those labels together. So I may have a label that's about benefits documents and how long we keep them, and another label that's about employee reviews and how long we keep them as well. And I might want to put those together, group those together, and put that or publish those policies over to the HR department because they use those types of files. And then for IT, I may have a different set of labels. And for accounting, I may have a holistically different set of labels. I'm going to group those together in what we call policies. And then those policies, I'm going to have published. So you see a published term here. I'm going to publish those over to my actual sites. And so there's my point there is there's a methodology to it. Don't just go in here and just start adding stuff. Don't do that. Do your research, understand what this actually does and what the implications are and the best practice for being able to deploy all this. That's important. And you need to just have those conversations ahead of time. It's governance, right? So now that I have those, this particular label right here, my HR label has, I'm going to show you two of these as long as it loads kind of quickly. So this one has a couple of labels in it that just pertain to HR. So it has my SBU 6400, and it has my employee reprimand, it has my benefits 4554, and it has my mega doc inside of there. And then I have another one down here for human resources benefits that just has a couple of items inside of there. And I'm going to take you to one site because that's probably all I have time for. But I have this one that has the benefits 4554 and the HUM, HUM for human resources 10,001 document, which is for benefits and compliance plans, or for something plans, compensation plans. Okay, so I'm going to go out to an actual site to see the end user portion of that. So again, admins, power users are going to be the ones that set this up for you, but you should be involved as a power user in the governance aspect of that. So you should be looking for these things to happen. Over here in this site, I've deployed those over here, and we don't have time to show you how I deployed it. Plus, it takes a while for it to actually deploy. But when I go to a document, every user should be trained on how to set a policy or set a label. So I'm going to go in here, go just to the properties window this way so you guys can see it a little bit better. Okay, and inside of here, I see apply label, and I can go here and you see those 4 items that I said were available there, my benefits 4554. And I would mark that here, and it's keep it for 5 years, and then I'll just save that. And now my environment is taking care of that. I don't have to have some user go and look at this 5 years from now to say, oh, which ones do I need to get rid of? The environment knows what to do. You've told the environment, and the process is now embedded into your SharePoint environment, into Office 365. And these labels can not only be for say, SharePoint, but could be for the Teams aspect of it as well. And then retention policies could go across other pieces, like maybe even emails and things like that across Exchange. So this is a very important part of every organization's process. So you guys need to understand this and need to be able to address this within the first year. Simultaneously, while you're addressing that, I would say you should also address information protection. So back in the Compliance Center, I'll go here, and above the records management piece is this section up here for information protection, where I create sensitivity labels. That's what these are called, sensitivity labels. Now, if you don't know what this is, I'll just give a brief explanation in the form of an example. Let's say I'm the HR manager. I have access to all the files in the HR site, and some of those files are super sensitive, like my FMLA leave, right? And I've got documents in there that have personal information in there that no one should be able to see other than the HR team. So I've got that there, but I have permissions to be able to go there. So I can get there anytime I want to because I have permissions to do it. Tavon is from another company. He certainly doesn't have permissions to see those. And then Kelsey works in a different department, but she does not have permissions to get to these. So permissions are protecting it for someone going to try to find it, right? But I, the HR manager, have access to it. I, the HR manager, am working with Tavon from another company, and I need to send him this document that we've been working on, and it's just a proposal to the vendor on how to build some kind of thing for us, right? So we've been working on that. I'm going to send that as an email over to Tavon. When I get to my email, I go to attach a document. I accidentally attach a different document that I've been working on all day because I'm in back-to-back meetings, and I get clouded stuff. People are asking me questions all day, so I got confused. I attached the wrong document. It was one of those FMLA documents. Oh no, I can do that because I have permissions to do that. If security says I can do that. I sent the email to Tavon. Tavon got the email about Bob's FMLA. That's wrong. Sensitivity labels are going to help you with that. What the sensitivity label does for you is say, okay, let's mark the document as internal document. And what that will do is say that it cannot be moved outside of the organization. So I called it internal document, but I set a whole bunch of properties on it, which I don't have time to show you guys every property that I set in here. But let's just say that I told it to watermark it as well as encrypt it if it ever goes out, and that only internal people should be able to see it. That's what I did to that. So now when I go over to this site that I have, and I have these management only documents, I can mark these with sensitivity labels. Now you can set up as defaults as well. You can say this whole site is sensitive if you really wanted to. That'd be a good thing to do, right? But I say here, this document is internal only. This one, right? These two right here are confidential documents, and they have different criteria on there. So I'm just going to go open this document in the browser, and what you're going to see here on it is some super cool stuff like it's watermarking it with my name on it, right? And if I had enough time to show you, and you'll see up here that it is actually marked as internal document, I can change that depending on your policies, whether you want someone to be able to change it or not. They have to explain why they're changing it, those types of things. But the key here is if I had time to show you how the email portion of this works, when they go to try to send this out in email, it's going to flag it. And that's what I wanted to do. And if by chance it got to that user somehow, when Tavon tried to open it, because he doesn't work for our company, what it's going to say is, you can't open this document, please log in, right? And he's going to have to log into our environment and make sure that he has permissions to be able to see this document before he'd ever be able to see that document. So he won't be able to see that document. I didn't send him a link to that document. I sent him an attachment, the actual document, and it still retains those rights on it. That is what you want out of your environment. That's a super helpful thing for any organization. I say start thinking about retention and information protection at the same time. I put some links in there, and we know that we have not done a very in-depth information protection webinar yet. So we're planning on getting that into the schedule so that we can do that for you guys and give you some deep dive details in it. Plus, if you know anything about this already, you know that the Purview Center, that particular piece of it for information protection has just had some upgrades. And so we probably need to give that information to you as well. All right, I'll turn it back to Kelsey.
Yes, absolutely. Like you said, Jared, I think it is really important for people to look at sensitivity and retention, within that first year for sure, because those are both very important to have ready before you start using Copilot. So, Tavon, I would love if you would take us into our new favorite tool, Copilot.
All right. So just to kind of set the stage here, I am not going to talk through what Copilot is or how you deploy it into your environment. We have some past webinars that really go into a lot of detail about Copilot, what it is, some things that we think you should do before you start rolling it out. What I want to spend this time on is what's new and how does Microsoft want you to start thinking about Copilot, and how do they want you to start using it? Because this is something that they see as a valuable tool for any organization, and they're always improving it. So the
Tavon,
first thing that
before you jump in there,
yes.
I'm just going to announce one more time because we're almost at the hour. So just so everybody knows, I'll just repeat this. You will get the entire slide deck sent to you, and you will also get the link to this video sent to you as well if you can't stay past the time. But we're going to keep going until we actually finish. So just hang out if you want to, and we're going to keep going. Go ahead, Tavon.
All right, perfect. So the first thing that's about to hit the Copilot market is what we refer to as Copilot pages. And this video that you see in the background here is just from Microsoft. It's them showing off what Copilot pages are and what they can do. So the whole concept behind pages here is really built on the foundation of Loop. If you've ever used Loop in that kind of collaborative, interactive way, that is what Copilot pages are going to be. But the intention of this is to take your interactions with Copilot and turn them from something that's kind of one and done and very, not very permanent, into something that you can actually continue to work on, continue to build with, and actually collaborate with your team using that Copilot interaction. So these Copilot pages are something that's going to be available for pretty much everybody out there to start working together on Copilot content. You'll see that little edit in pages button, and you can actually share this page or this workspace with whoever you want. Now, Copilot pages are something I think is actually very, very important for Microsoft's vision of Copilot, because the way that they want you to think of the tool is instead of it being something that you use to check your own work, it's something that you start with. It's the place that you go to actually begin the process of whatever you're working on.
Yeah.
And these pages are really going to help with that. Go ahead.
And I think that's important because what we've been telling everybody all along, remain the expert. Let Copilot be your assistant that types everything up for you, and then you be the reviewer. So think of Copilot as that intern that did the work for you. Now you get to review it. You wouldn't just take an intern's information and publish it somewhere. You would then review it. And what this is doing is giving us a way to be able to include Copilot into that actual conversation as we go along. So that's pretty cool stuff to be able to do as well, right? So Copilot, I'm using you, my team is using you. We're just putting all ideas in one place as we're getting the answers back. That's really nice to be able to do. This is going to be a great enhancement.
Absolutely. And beyond just using the out of the box Copilot collaboratively in what Microsoft is referring to as multiplayer Copilot, fun term there, we're also getting some new abilities when it comes to actually expanding Copilot and building on what it's already able to do for us. So let me have you go to our next slide here. We're going to talk all about customizing Copilot. So there are three major terms that I want you to be familiar with when it comes to customizing Copilot or even making your own branch of Copilot. The first one is knowledge. Knowledge is just what Copilot knows and what it understands. We are going to have the ability to tell Copilot or tell our custom chatbots, hey, use these places to get your information. We can also control whether it actually uses the information it was trained on when we're talking to it in one of these custom contexts. So if you want Copilot to use its own background understanding and use the web and use your organization data and look at Salesforce or ServiceNow, great, it can do that. But if you want it to be highly specialized, if you want your IT support Copilot interactions to literally just look at your controlled IT knowledge base articles, it can do that. That is the idea behind knowledge. It's something that Microsoft wants us all to start playing with when it comes to Copilot.
And you might be looking at this thinking, public websites, why would I want to do that? I can't trust the information from public websites. But we have lots of clients that are scientific in nature. And so there's nothing wrong with them saying, hey, go look at the federal government website. Those are trusted sources of information, right? And so I could say, hey, not only crawl through our stuff, but go look at this NASA site, or go look at this this federal data collector or data repository. Go look at those things. So there's nothing wrong with being able to do that. And it's weird to see it there, but when you put it into a different context, it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you can specify what those websites are. So it's not just that you say, go crawl the entire web. You can say, look at our website or look at the website of our partner so people can get their questions answered. All right, let me have you move to the next slide. We'll talk about actions. So if you're familiar with the Power Platform, you are familiar with many of these things you're seeing on screen right now, right? These are all actions and connectors rather, that come from Power Automate that we're all used to seeing. This is something that we're going to be able to actually have Copilot have some agency over now, right? You can tell Copilot or you can tell your custom chatbot, here are the things you're allowed to do. You can now act on a user's behalf. You can now send an email automatically. You can now create a project site with this custom connector up at the top. You can go ahead and actually enter data into something like Salesforce, or go ahead and spin up a pardon me, Microsoft Team or Teams channel based on the user input, right? We're taking that classic workflow and actually allowing Copilot to figure out, here are the things I'm allowed to do. Here's the knowledge I have. Let me take all of that, combine it with the context of our conversation, and actually go do a process for you. This is what they're referring to as Copilot agents, and it is the direction that they are really, really pushing, right? If you're not already familiar with the Power Platform actions and connectors, definitely spend some time looking at those so you can understand what you can allow Copilot to do for you as an organization. All right, and the last thing that I want to talk about is autonomy for Copilot. Not only can you have it actually go out and run those actions based on your conversation, but the direction we're moving is allowing Copilot to just work on your behalf without you having to interact with it. That sounds a little scary for some of you. For others, it's really exciting. But this is the same idea that we've had for a very long time with Power Automate workflows. It's just that now Copilot can build its own understanding of that workflow based on the knowledge that you give it, based on those actions that you tell it has access to. This comes with another piece of the puzzle, triggers, right? Same concept as Power Automate workflow triggers, but now Copilot can say, oh, you got an email? Let me process that. Copilot can say, oh, it's been 3 days. Let me run this workflow process and make sure that I understand what's going on with it. And you can actually see why it builds out its own workflow in a certain way with this whole thought process piece that they're giving us access to, which is really cool stuff. I think this is going to be pretty useful for every organization out there that's using Copilot to start thinking about your workflows in this context beyond just what we're used to seeing with Power Automate.
So that was awesome, Tavon. Those are, and I'm super glad that you had to suffer through going to that conference so that you could actually give us this information. But I would just say to everybody, that just means more and more that you need the data governance in place for your Copilot for AI before you turn it all on. So if you have not looked at our webinar on data governance or any of the webinars we've done, please look at those to understand what you really should have in place before you turn on Copilot, because you want to turn on Copilot. You want to get to the place where you can do all these awesome and amazing things. And then so what's happened over the last year is customers or clients started asking us, hey, can you just come in and do a private class for us on just Copilot and what we need to get it ready? So we did so many of those, and we get so many requests like that. We decided, okay, well, let's go ahead and offer a public class as well. There is one coming up on October 17th. So I put that information inside of here as well. You know us, we don't try to make any of our webinars sound like sales, but this actually has been valuable to a lot of people, and they keep telling us how valuable it is. So just making it available to you guys so you guys understand that it's there. So there you have that. Okay, I'll give it back to Kelsey. I think unless Tavon has anything else to say, I think we ran out of information to talk about. I know that we're over time. I appreciate all of you who stayed on after that. But Kelsey, you want to go ahead and close us out?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you so much, everyone who joined us. The slides again will be sent out to everyone after this, so you'll receive the recording and the slides. Again, my name and contact information is there too, so if you have any questions that we weren't able to get to, please feel free to reach out to me. We don't quite have time left for questions, but I appreciate everyone so much for being here, and be on the lookout for more webinars in the near future.
We appreciate all of you. Thank you, and have a great,
Thanks,
wonderful day.
everyone. Bye.